welcome everybody. And this is part 2 of how to be an influencer by type. And today we're going to be talking about how to influence divine timing, which is a big, big topic. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to bend time. But unfortunately, I only have an hour, but maybe I'll bend time and see how much we get done with that today, how much we can follow through on that today. But all right, without further ado, let's get started. It takes a while for us to be influential here today. So influence. We're talking about influence part 2, and we are looking at how do we influence divine timing. So I just want to say to you, timing is the one thing we actually don't have control over. So I'm very deliberately using the word influence, but you can influence timing. So when we talk about influence, a lot of times when we talk about influence, we have a tendency to think that influence is this, right? It's persuasion. You got to find the right words. Any of you who are in business for yourself, right? You've got to find the right marketing strategy, the right platform, the right brand, blah, 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 right? To be persuasive. I'm going to tell you it's none of that, all right? You can be the worst marketer in the world. And if you are doing all of the things I'm going to talk to you about today correctly, you will persuade people easily. You will be deeply compelling. So let's keep rolling with that. It's not about persuasion. It's about your vibration. You lead your tribe with your vibe. All right. You lead your tribe with your vibe. And if you are aligned with your right place, your right energy, who you are, we talked about this last week. And if you missed last week's, go back and watch it again because it was fun. It's not about it's not about being persuasive. It's about your vibration. You'll see it's on my notes back here. I align, I can, I do. Write these 4 phrases down. Because the code for creating anything you want in your life is contained in these 4 sentences. I am, I align, I can, I do. So if we start to break these down, and when I teach this, it takes me a couple of days to break this all the way down. But we're going to focus today primarily on the I am part. The summary basically of this is when you are who you are, when you're expressing your genuine self, you create alignment, meaning you have you're congruous in the way in which you live your life, in the way in which you speak about yourself, in the way in which you take care and nurture yourself, in the energy that you sustain for yourself. When you are being authentic, you align your entire life with the expression of who you are. When you are in alignment, then you create for yourself the capacity to do whatever it is that you want to do. You have to start first with the I am piece. I taught a class for a lot of years called Prosperity Boot Camp. And it was a manifesting class. And I had a lot of clients, me included. I wasn't my client, but I was struggling with some of this too. I really struggled with creating what they wanted in their life. And part of what happens is when we get into the process of crafting, creating, manifesting a reality, oftentimes what we are creating isn't really aligned with who we are. So, for example, if you are, let's keep this really, really simple, and let's keep this simple in the context of human design. Let's say you are a manifestor, a projector, or reflector, and you have an undefined sacral center. And you decide that you're going to get a job that pays $1 bajillion and work that job super hard for 10 years, sock that money aside so that you can then go do what you really want to do. The universe is smarter than that. The universe is going to be like, you don't need to work to do what you want to do. Why don't you skip that step? We'll take care of the details. You just do you, honey, right? But we, in our brilliance, in our conditioned mind that says, I got to figure out how, in our conditioned mind, we're like trying to figure out how, and that causes us to compromise what we think we can do, who we think we are, what we think is okay to express out in the world. So we're going to talk today, as I said, about I am. All right. And we're going to start talking about I am in a way that I don't like to do most often, but let's talk about who you are first in the context of who you're not. All right. Anytime you are expressing what I'll call the inauthentic self, if you've studied traditional human design, there's a term that's used a lot called the not self. I'm really not a fan of that term anymore. I've decided I don't want to use that term anymore. So we're just going to call it the inauthentic self. Anytime you express the inauthentic self, you're out of alignment. So let's talk about what's the inauthentic self. It's anytime you're living off of your chart, meaning you're not living true to your design, meaning you're trying to live out energy that you picked up in your openness and amplified and maybe mistakenly identified with. Anytime you're making decisions in a way that's not aligned with your type and your authority, anytime you're trying to be someone you're not, do something you don't want to do, take care of someone at cost to yourself, anytime you're not honoring your right place in the world, you're living the inauthentic self. Specifically in the human design chart, and this is true for all of you because you all have all of the chart. Some of you have parts of the chart colored in or defined, which means you experience those energies consistently. Some of you have energies that are open or undefined, which means you have variability in the way in which you experience those energies, but you do experience everything in the chart. If we look at the chart as a template or a blueprint for what's possible in your human story, we see that the G center at the center of the chart, sometimes called the identity center, the center that gives you love or tells you about how you experience love and your understanding of love, and the center that gives you direction. The center for love and direction is regulated and calibrated by these 8 gates. I had to count them really quickly. These 8 gates, right? So what this tells us is that when we understand the chart as a blueprint for the human story is that we are being authentic, and the highest expression of our authentic self when we love ourselves. So the more you love yourself, the more your life starts to take you in a direction that reflects the quality of love that you have for yourself. You start to attract friends and partnerships and agreements in your life that honor who you are and your lovability. The second energy that calibrates our direction is our sense of power and empowerment. We are designed to be powerful. And the more powerful you are, or the more you feel powerful over your life, the more your life is going to be aligned authentically. Okay? You're going to be more aligned with who you are because who you are is powerful by design. All of you, every one of you. The gate 1, which calibrates our center for direction and our sense of love, is authenticity. It says, are you comfortable, free, open to express who you are to the world? Do you recognize and honor who you are so much that you know that who you are is the contribution you're here to give to the world? It's not a book. It's not a platform on a stage. It's not a novel. It's not winning, making $1 million company, whatever. It's not what you do. It's who you are. Are you being yourself? Because the more you're expressing your truth, the truth story of who you are, the more you're living aligned with who you are. The next gate, the 13, is the place where we store our personal narrative. This is the place where every day your chart, your energy system gives you the opportunity to redefine the story of who you are. We have the power and the capacity to tell a story about who we are that is true or not, that is empowering or not, that is loving or not. And the quality of the narrative that you are telling is going to influence the direction that your life takes and the state of alignment that you have with what it is you're wanting to create in the world. And of course, obviously, your influence. You're telling a story that's all about how nobody sees you and nobody cares about you and nobody's ever cared about you ever in your life. and you're invisible, and that's your narrative that you're holding, that's going to be part of what you create in your reality. It won't last. You'll have some kind of crisis around it because that's not actually true. You're not designed to be invisible, except for my fifth line profiles. All my fifth line profiles they want to be invisible, right? You're not designed to be invisible. You're designed to have a right place. All of you. We see that we are calibrating our alignment when we are connected to source. And that has a double entendre here. That means you are connected to your spiritual source, which informs you about where your personal identity can be of service to the greater good. It's also the place where we have resources. It connects to the will center, the place where we have this precious energy bank that is the will center. And that energy bank that is the will center says, I have the energy. I have the identity integrity. I have the physical integrity. I have the moral integrity. I have the resource integrity to be able to be in alignment with what I'm wanting to create, meaning you're not compromising your value or your sources. You're staying resourced so that you have more to bring to the table and you're not martyring yourself to your intentions and your creativity. Because the age of martyrdom is over. We're here to create in alignment with a level of well-being that I think we've probably never seen before on this planet yet. So it's an exciting time to be alive. We are designed to be embodied, meaning we are designed to love our bodies, to take care of our bodies, to nurture our bodies, to stay in a state of vitality because that calibrates our quality of alignment. If you're burned out, you don't have the energy to do something and you're pushing against that burnout. You're out of alignment because you're burned out. I am burned out, right? And that burnout needs to be honored and nurtured and taken care of and healed in order for you to create a greater alignment with the full capacity of the expression of your vitality and your life force. The two says our alignment is dependent on our willingness to allow ourselves to receive support, which I don't know why, but this is like a really tricky thing for us to do as humans, right? Especially when we're conditioned to work hard all the time. That we forget that there's grace in the chart. The chart itself says you are designed to receive everything you need to fulfill the story of who you are. And what the trick is, can you allow it? Can you trust in your value enough and own and hold your value enough to let yourself receive everything that you need to receive to fulfill who you are? And then can you take it in with gratitude? Or are you looking at what you don't have instead of what you do? And then last but not least, this is one of my favorites. We are designed to share who we are with the world. And we're designed, once we have enough, once we are resourced, we are designed to share the extra. We are designed to express the truth of who we are and share it with the world. And that's a part of your influence. And you're authentic and you're aligned and you're sharing who you are with the world wants that. The world eats that up because the world, more than anything in the world, I believe, wants to be authentic. And we don't know oftentimes how to articulate that. We don't understand the quality of freedom that creates for us. And when you can embody that and bring that forth to the world, not only are you obviously getting to enjoy the benefits of it, you're creating the opportunity for other people to experience the same on a vibrational level, like a big domino. You're just whoop, knocking over dominoes all over the place, teaching people that, hey, you can be who you are and have everything you need. And it's a beautiful thing. And you're powerful. Anytime we resist who we are, meaning when you resist your lovability, your power, your authenticity, when you have a personal narrative that isn't true to who you are and you're resisting the true story of who you are, when you resist the value of who you are and the worthiness that you are of having a deep relationship with source, when you resist your physical body, when you resist allowing and receiving, when you resist sharing, our energy loses its sustainability and resiliency, and we experience aspects of the icky part of our emotional themes of our human design type. So all that stuff that you hate when you get your chart, people ask me this all the time. What is bitterness? I'm not bitter, right? Or frustration. The generator's always like, I'm so frustrated, right? Is that emotional theme? We get to experience that when we're not in alignment, right? So, we're going to talk now a little bit about the power of your human design type. And the reason why we're going to talk about this is this: when you live aligned with your energy type, you start to create in an amplified way, at a higher speed, at a higher frequency, because you don't have all this junk in the way that the universe is having to create around. You influence timing by being yourself. Part one is be yourself, because that speeds things up. If you're trying to be somebody else, it's like the mailman's knocking on your door, but you're not there, right? All right. We're going to talk about today who you are. And we're going to talk about it in a brand new way, not who you aren't, because I'm done talking about who you aren't. All right. So let's start first with the manifester. I'm going to share with you guys today. Actually, let me get out of here for a second. What we know from research, the language that we use actually impacts our DNA, meaning this: you have protein codes on your DNA. Those protein codes contain the energy of memories. They contain up to 14 generations of memories. We call this sometimes your ancestral DNA. You have ancestral DNA that's influencing how your DNA expresses itself. You can influence how your DNA expresses itself. You can change the nature of the regulators, the epigenes on your DNA. You can do it by diet. You can do it by meditation. You can do it with the EFT, the emotional freedom techniques. You can do it with shamanic ritual. You can also do it by changing the quality of the language that you use. And what we are seeing is that when we use high frequency, beautiful, aligned language, we actually change the possibility that we can have healthier DNA, healthier bodies, that we can change the nature of what we transmit transgenerationally or intergenerationally, and we change the nature of what's in the gene pool of the collective. If we want to change what's possible on this planet, we can change our own gene code as the template for what else we could be creating in our human experience. The language you use is important. I am not a huge fan of the vocabulary in human design, and I have been rewriting it probably for about 10 years in different ways. And I've really pulled back and explored more deeply how can I change the nature of the language we use in human design. So I'm going to share with you today new language around the human design types. So you're going to learn a different word for your human design type. And I want you to explore that word and play with that word and enjoy that word and live into that word and fantasize about that word and use your imagination to really think about what would it feel like to really enter the energy of this new vocabulary. So, ready? Our manifestors are our internal initiating energy forces, right? The manifestor has an internal nonverbal creative flow. The role of the manifestor is to follow with great freedom that internal nonverbal creative flow. The new language that I'd like to invite you to explore, to use around being a manifestor, is being an initiator. The role of the manifestor is to initiate people into the frequency of transformation and creativity through direct access to what I like to call the quantum pulse, or you could call it divine inspiration, whatever you think it is you want to call it. But your role as a manifestor is to initiate people into that frequency, to get them moving in that creative flow, in that alignment with the higher frequencies of energies that you're bringing forth onto the planet. If we're going to rewrite the language of human design, we also have to redefine the emotional theme, because nobody likes the emotional theme. And part of the problem we have around the vocabulary in human design, especially around the emotional theme, is that we actually really don't understand, first of all, what is emotional energy, because it's an energy that's in huge flux. It's in evolutionary flux, right? Emotions 150, 200 years ago are something very different than what they are now and what we're moving into. Now the emotional energy is becoming this powerhouse of creative force, right? Whereas before it was just this sort of reactive thing we did. The vocabulary we have around emotions isn't big enough yet. It's not high frequency enough. And we struggle, especially I think in English, which is kind of limiting when it comes to talking about emotions. We struggle with really defining clearly good words for our feelings. So we say in traditional human design, the manifester is angry. That's and I do a lot of readings for people who've read about the anger of the manifester and who are like, I'm not angry all the time. Why? We paint the picture of the angry manifester in traditional human design. Manifestors are not angry per se. When you are a manifester and you have this internal nonverbal creative flow, and your life purpose is to serve that flow, because through serving that flow, you initiate the world into what's next. And when you're moving through the world in that flow, and somebody stops you and says, "Hey, do you need some help?" And you're like, "Wah!" Right? Those of you who are manifesting generators, you might also relate to this. That emotional response is not really anger. It feels like anger because we don't have a word for it. But really, what's happened here is you're in this power surge of creativity. And it's a nonverbal power surge of creativity. So now you've gone through this creative surge, you're serving this creative surge, and somebody comes along and uses language, which is actually a lower frequency of energy. And for you to be able to interact with that person, you've got to step down your vibe. And now you got to not only step down your vibe, now you got to find the words. And while you're searching for the words, you've lost your flow. You lost that creative flow. And so now you've got this energy that was going here, right? And now it's like it's got to disperse because it's too much energy for you to hold in your body if you're not moving with it. And we react with what seems like anger, but it's not. It's like a lightning bolt that's gotten released and it's got to go somewhere. So it's not anger, it's creative disruption. And if we try to overpower the manifestor, if you're raising manifestor children and you try to overpower them, or you're in partnership with people who are denying your power and denying your manifestor energy, or you haven't tapped into it yourself and you're not activating it for yourself, that creative disruption is happening all over the place and you're not activating the full flow of your initiating power. The adventure for the manifestor, here's how you become more aligned. You learn to reclaim your power and overcome your feeling alone, because those are two things that can rob you of your initiating energy: feeling powerless and alone. The generator. I like to call the generator the alchemist, because the role of the generator is to physically manifest form and mastery on the material plane. And every time I say this, probably right now as we speak, somebody's typing into the chat, "Can't other types be masterful?" Yes. Yes, you can. You are here to be masterful being who you are. We all are. And there's a specific process for the generator that involves repetition, 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 repetition. That's part of the expression of mastery. And it's the physical embodiment of that. And yes, you all can become masterful. When we look at the emotional theme of the generator, we see that the generator, as part of their creative process, has frustration. And that frustration happens, first of all, when we're in that cycle of repetition, repetition, repetition to get to the level of mastery. That once, when we're in those repetitive cycles, we hit plateaus. We hit plateaus where we feel stuck. Every generator will tell you when you do a reading for them, "I feel stuck." That's why they get readings. "I feel stuck." It's a natural part of the generator process to have plateaus in your mastery. You need integration if you're a generator type. That plateau is really about building momentum. You can't go up to the next level until you have the energy and the wisdom and the embodiment of the mastery to go to the next level. So that frustration is really that energy building for the next surge in mastery. When generators tell me I'm so frustrated, I'm like, woo, that's awesome, because that means you're about to have a breakthrough. The more frustrated you are, the more momentum you're building. It's like scooting around on the carpet, in the wintertime here in Minnesota, and building up static. You're building up energy, and that frustration, what we interpret as frustration, is really just the energy buildup. You're gaining momentum. The adventure for the generator is, first of all, enduring through the plateaus, because generators have a tendency to quit. They get frustrated and they don't recognize that it's momentum, and they bail. And then they go start something else, and something else, and something else, and something else, and they never get to become masterful because they quit. And then, of course, the disbelief in source. It's hard to believe when you're gaining momentum on that plateau and nothing seems to be happening, that there's a benevolent tractor beam of goodness headed your way to give you the next opportunity, right? You don't know that that's coming if you don't trust in source. And so you're like standing there going, I'm an idiot for waiting. Why am I waiting? I should be going doing something. And then you bail and you quit, right? Our manifesting generators, I like to call them the time benders. Okay, because the function of the purpose of the manifesting generator is they're generator types. Okay, they're still a generator type no matter how much they try to not be. That means they still have that whole theme of mastery, and they still have those stair steps that they have to go up. They have plateaus that they sit on, right? And while they're sitting on a plateau, they're building momentum. And manifestors tend to leap over plateaus. It makes it look like they're faster. They're actually not really faster, by the way. If you started off a generator and a manifesting generator off at the same point in January, and you went back and looked at where are they in June, they'd be at the same place. It's just that the path that they choose to get there is a little bit different. Generators tend to be more slow and steady wins the race. And the time benders are like all over the place. They're jumping a couple of steps and they have to go back because they skipped something, and they have to go learn, and then they're going up again, and then they're back again. But the role of the manifesting generator is ultimately to find the quickest route through things, the most effective, most efficient way to do things, right? Now, it's a fantasy, I think, of the manifesting generator to really live this time bending piece, right? Because the mantra of the manifesting generator is often nothing's moving fast enough. And that's the source of frustration at times for the time bender types. The quantum purpose of the time bender is to physically manifest creativity and speed up the quantum process and linear time. They're here to show us that we can do it in a different way, at a different speed. We can leap time. The theme for the manifesting generator is the frustration of the generator types and the anger of the manifesting type, because the manifesting generator has both qualities. The manifesting generator, just like the manifester, does still have that internal nonverbal creative flow and a little bit of that initiating energy, but they still have to wait to enact it. You can't go really initiate the way a manifester can. You still have to have something to respond to. So you're also a generator type. And so you are primarily, because of your definition, a generator type with a little bit of speed. So you've got, again, similar themes here: creative disruption with the anger and momentum. And of course, aloneness and disconnection from source is the adventure or the challenge here. And the big thing for the manifesting generators to learn how to do, dun, 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 is surrender. Surrender and trust that if you wait, the right things will show up. And then you can do all three of them at once, because manifesting generators can do that. And maybe two out of the three will be successful and one won't. And that doesn't mean you were screwed up or you were broken or you did something wrong. It just means that you need to do a lot of things at the same time to keep your energy occupied so you don't blow things up or start yelling at other people because they're not moving fast enough. The projector. The projector is our orchestrator. It is the role of the projector to manage and guide and direct the rest of us. The quantum purpose of the projector is to hold the energy template of what's to come. So if you are a projector, and I know I have a lot of you on these calls, part of what you're doing when it looks like you're networking, not working, not networking, not working. Okay. When you're not working, don't network unless you feel compelled to, unless you're invited to. You are laying on the couch, anchoring the energy blueprint of the future. So when people say, "What are you doing?" You say, "I'm creating the future world. I'm taking time off to build the future." Okay, that's what you're doing. You're a futurist. So you're holding the energy template of what's to come in place. The subtle body of the planet. If we did meridian therapy on the planet, is the projectors that are all the little points that are holding the whole meridian system together, metaphorically. Because your sacral is open and because you know what's necessary to keep this template intact and healthy. The other thing that you're doing is you're clearing the vibration of the collective consciousness so that this template can stay intact and fulfill its potential in the future as we move into it, as we manifest it in physical form. So if you think, "Oh my God, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here and, watching Netflix," that's not true. You're actually holding the world together. You're holding the future together. And do not ever discount the power of the energy work that you do by virtue of your existence. You are holding together the grid of the future. The emotional theme of the projector is bitterness. And sometimes you'll hear projectors say, "It's not fair. Why is it so hard for me? It's so easy for other people. Why is it so hard for me?" And that feels like bitterness. The thing about the projector is it's not fair. It's that energy is of a premium to the projector. And when you are a projector, you don't have all the extra energy that the manifestors, manifesting generators, the generator types have. And when you go out in your world trying to live as a generator or a manifesting generator or a manifester, even, you run out of energy. You get depleted. The bitterness is a signal that, oh, time for me to take a break, time for me to get some rest, time for me to stop doing, time for me to hit the couch, go for a walk in the wilderness very slowly, time for me to sleep, whatever you need to do to replenish your energy source. And if you love a projector and they are becoming bitter, and they might not see it because the projector is very, very good at seeing everybody else. They're not always so good at being self-aware. If the projector is feeling bitter, the projector you love is feeling bitter, help them see that they need to take a break. They need to replenish their energy source so they have more to have available for themselves, so they have more to have available for us. Because those of us who are not projector types, you need a projector. If you don't have one, go get one, because they'll make your life much better. The adventure of the projector is to activate their self-worth and energy, because the truth is, when you are a projector and you don't operate the way most of the world operates, and people judge you for that all the time because you can't just go out and make it happen, your sense of your value can sometimes go down. So you've got to have, for you to be able to bend time, for you to be able to influence timing, you've got to have a high quality of self-value or self-worth, and you got to have the energy reserves. Because if you don't trust in your own value and you don't have the energy available for an opportunity, it's not going to come. And it's not going to come because you're screwing up. It's not going to come because the universe is going to be like, "Well, you're not ready. You need to rest." And hand in hand with the opportunities not showing up can be, in conjunction with that, a feeling that you've been abandoned by God. The source doesn't have anything to give you, like you got forgotten. And so to heal that is a big part of what the projector needs to stay strong and healthy and to influence timing. Our reflectors, the reflector, I like to call the reflector the calibrator. It is the purpose of the calibrator to measure through reflection the human condition and human potential. You are the metric stick that we're looking at to see how we're doing. And you show us by embodying the energy around you through your actions, through your choices, through your experiences, through your feelings, through how you express yourself in the world. The emotional theme of the reflector is disappointment. And it's really rooted in two things. It happens sometimes when when the reflector doesn't have enough time because the reflector, the recalibrator, needs time, a lot of time to make good decisions and choices. And part of that's just because they are so open and so deeply experiencing the energy around them that it takes time for them to tease out everybody else's energy for them to get aligned with what's right for them, what's right for their choice. And in part of that process is they need to, while they're waiting and clarifying and going through their lunar cycles, they're going through and they're really they need to talk through what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and they need to be attuned to the changeability of what they're thinking and feeling based on how their chart changes with the lunar movements. The other thing, though, that happens for the reflector is here you have someone who innately gets the full potential of the human experience. You've got 9 open centers. That means the reflector is experiencing all of the possible ways that humanity could be expressing itself. And from that experience, the reflector knows what's possible. And the disappointment can be an indicator that they're in an environment, they're witnessing in that environment unfulfilled potential and not giving themselves enough time to figure out their way through that unfulfilled potential. It's very easy for the reflector to take it on as their own or for them to become depleted in conjunction with the disappointment with the unfulfilled potential. The adventure of the reflector is to have the courage to extricate themselves from the misaligned people they are surrounding themselves with, to extricate themselves and to have faith that when they extricate themselves, they will find their right place and the right people. It's only through being who you are that you can begin the process of aligning. If you're not being who you are, if you're not the I am, then you need to do that piece first because you can't align if you're not being who you are. In other words, if you're not loving yourself, just a quick reminder, loving yourself, feeling empowered, expressing yourself authentically, telling a story about who you are that's true, holding your value and recognizing that you're worthy of having a relationship with Source. If you're not fully embodying through your actions, through your choices, the way in which you nurture yourself, your physical health and well being, if you're not maintaining and sustaining a state of allowing and gratitude, and if you're not sharing the true story of who you are with the world, meaning if you know your type and your type isn't aligned with these energies right here, if you're trying to be something you're not, act like a type that's not really true to who you are, you're going to be not doing the I am part. You're definitely not going to be living aligned, which means you're not going to be able to create sustainably in alignment with who you are. If you're not aligned, everything you try to create will not be sustainable, right? Not only that, your energy won't be compelling. If you're not living true to yourself, especially if you're not living true to yourself and you're deep into the emotional theme of whatever your type is. I didn't want to use the word repelling because that's a pretty harsh word. So I'm going to say not be compelling. Okay. You're not going to be compelling. And that means your capacity to influence goes down. Your capacity to create connections goes down. Your capacity to tap into the things to respond to, the creative flow, the invitations and the recognition, the community you need to be in will go down. And you will run the risk of feeling very alone and insignificant in a world where you are designed to be interconnected in the way that's right for you, and obviously profoundly significant because you fulfilling the right place, your right story in the cosmic tapestry, in the cosmic plan, is so vital that literally we would not be who we are today if you weren't here. The world wouldn't be what it is today if you weren't in it. So your role, your identity, your worthiness of being supported, your alignment with the true story of who you are is compelling. And it's compelling because it's really what everybody wants. We all really just want to be who we are and how we are. And we want to be allowed to do that. And when we see people who are doing that, it holds a vibrational frequency for us that gives us permission, shows us a path to be able to do the same for ourselves. If you don't live true to who you are and you don't activate your purpose and your energy, then you run the risk of becoming an energy vampire. Or you probably know people who are energy vampires, right? This is the most non scary vampire I could find. So let's go through one last piece before I let you go today. Let's talk about energy needs and the human design chart. Because here's the other part of this. When you live true to who you are, when you are aligned, then you're also getting your energy needs met in a way that's healthy, that creates a dynamic with others that allows them to be with you in the free give and flow, ebb and flow of energy. When you are not aligned with who you are, you're entering into your relationships with unconscious agreements and unmet energy needs, meaning you're looking to other people to try to fulfill your own energy needs. You're looking for people who are going to collaborate with you on the stories that you might be telling of you being less than. You're going to look to people to fulfill your emotional needs. You're going to look to other people to fulfill your self love, to fulfill your resources for you. And it doesn't work that way, especially if you're not doing it consciously and talking about it ahead of time. So let's look at what does each type need and how can we support them in getting it. If you love somebody with these energies, right? We won't talk about ourselves because you all know other people like this, right? Not you. So first of all, just remember there are 4 motors in the chart. When we talk about gaining access to energy, this is usually what we're looking at. And when we talk about relationship dynamics, which we're not talking about today, but oftentimes when we get into relationships, one of the things that attracts us is the access, the electromagnetic access that we get to energy, especially if you are a generator, projector, or reflector. When we look at the energy, what we're really looking at is how well does this energy get to the throat? And like I said, in our relationships, we're always attracted to people who bring us energy to the throat or bring us the 4 motors, connect to the throat, either through a black channel, a red channel, or a red and black channel. For us to feel good in the world, for us to be who we are, and for us to feel aligned, we need to feel loved and valued, capable and powerful. When we feel loved and valued, capable and powerful, and remember, these are really not things that can be sourced outside of ourselves. These are things that you cultivate for your states, that you cultivate for yourself when you are living true to who you are. It takes time sometimes. It's not something you're going to learn overnight. Sometimes it takes a few years to figure it out and to live it and to explore it and to experiment with it. But these are these are feelings that need to be sourced within yourself. The more you hold these energies, the more you can move your energy in a healthy way. If you don't feel loved and valued, if you don't feel capable, if you don't feel powerful, you run the risk of depending on other people to try to fill those for you. And that can cause you to actually take energy from others or have other people who have unmet energy needs take that energy from you. Unmet energy needs create mistaken motivations. These are specific emotional responses that someone has when they don't learn how to appropriately get their needs met. There are actually 4 mistaken motivations. This actually comes from the work of Dr. Rudolf Dreikurs, who was a child development specialist. And I think it really applies to adults too. So when we're looking at the 4 mistaken motivations, we're looking at behaviors that don't necessarily look a certain way, but they are behaviors that make us feel a certain way. So as we explore these mistaken motivations, I want you just to think, we're not going to go deep into these. I want you just to think about the people in your life who have unmet energy needs and how their behavior makes you feel, because that's going to give you deep insights into what it is that they need to feel better about themselves and to get their energy needs met appropriately. So, if you have somebody in your life who makes you feel irritated and annoyed, this is a different way of influencing people, right? If you have somebody in your life who's making you feel irritated and annoyed, they have what's called the mistaken motivation of attention because they've never learned how to ask for what they need and want. Like, hey, I'm really feeling left out. Can we spend a little bit of time together? So instead of asking for what they need and want, they irritate you and they annoy you. It's not conscious. They're not necessarily doing it on purpose. There's a pattern that maybe they've learned from their whole life. Maybe when they were little, they didn't feel like they got enough attention. So they learned that, oh, when I'm irritating and annoying, people pay attention to me. Because when you're a child, negative attention is better than no attention at all. So you take that pattern of that unmet energy need forward into your adult life, and then you become an irritating and annoying adult. And it's not really that you're irritating and annoying. You're not. It's that you have energy needs. You want attention and recognition. And if you're not getting it, you learn mischievous ways of creating that in your partnerships. If your partner or the people in your life make you feel like you want to overpower them, sometimes you have this experience if you have children, right? They have that response of like, you will do this, right? You will wear those shoes to school. You will eat your eggs, right? Do you feel like you want to overpower your child or somebody else in your life? It's because they are expressing the mistaken motivation of power. They have somewhere sourced within them unmet power needs, and they're triggering a power struggle in the dynamic of your relationship because they don't know how to specifically tell you, hey, I'm feeling really disempowered in my life right now. So all this stuff going on at work or all this stuff going on at school, and I feel like I don't have a voice in my own direction and everybody's telling me what to do. So I'm going to come home and I'm going to take it out on you and I'm going to create a power struggle because then I'm going to feel more powerful in this dynamic. Again, unhealthy dynamics, unmet energy needs. It's an interesting way of being influential, but it works, right? Inadequacy, the mistaken motivation of inadequacy makes you feel sorry for someone. If you've ever had a kid who had Legos, this is a good way to look at it. And like they dump the entire box of Legos out on the floor and you tell them, go pick it up. And they're like, I can't, right? This is where you want to help the kid break things down into smaller, manageable tasks. But, we do inadequacies as grown-ups too, right? And if you have somebody in your life that you're really like confused, like what's going on with this person? They're really capable, but they seem to not be able to they're like overwhelmed. They're like stuck. They're not moving. They're experiencing inadequacy, and part of that's just they can't tell you. They haven't learned how to say, "Hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed." Or sometimes when we feel overwhelmed, we shut down when we get inadequate, right? Last but not least, mistaken motivation of revenge. This one you don't see that often unless there's already a pretty significant breach in the quality of the partnership or the relationship. When somebody is engaged in the energy of revenge, your first impulse, the way you feel in response to their behavior, is you want to hurt them back. So you feel like they say something and then your first impulse is to try to say something back to them that's hurtful. When people are enacting the energy of revenge, the mistaken motivation of revenge, they're doing it because they question their lovability. And they feel like unconsciously, again, all of these are unconscious patterns. They feel like if they can trigger an emotional response from you, even if it's negative, they can hurt you. Then they at least still have some kind of inroad to your heart, right? So even though it's not nearly as nice as hugging, it's at least proof to them that, oh, I can still hurt this person. So there's still some kind of caring in there for me. The reason why I put this out here is because I just want to explore our last couple slides. I want to explore your energy needs by type. So that when you start to think about how are you influencing people, are you influencing people by being compelling, by being deeply aligned with the full expression of who you are? Or are you trying to influence people? Are you burning a lot of energy trying to consciously or unconsciously manipulate people because you don't know or you don't have a history of getting your energy needs met correctly. So manifestors are initiators. They need freedom and power. They need to be informed, because if you don't tell your manifestor what's up, it's very hard for them to be in their creative flow. And they need support to manage the creative disruption that happens very frequently in the manifestor process. The generator, our alchemists, need to feel capable. Because a generator will always have a non-motorized throat, they need recognition and attention, and they need to be asked yes or no questions. And they need support to manage the frustration or the momentum. The manifesting generator needs freedom, power, and a sense of capability. They need to be asked yes or no question, and they need to be supported in managing their frustration and anger, and they need to be allowed. I didn't put this on here, but this is important. They need to be allowed and supported in doing more than one thing at a time because it's healthy for them. The projectors need recognition and attention, our orchestrators, right? They need to feel precious and valuable. They need help recognizing the bitterness so that they can learn to take a rest when they need to. And they need to talk, just like reflectors. Projectors and reflectors need space for a sounding board. They don't need advice. You don't need advice if you're a projector or a reflector, but you need a place where you can talk and unload all your stuff out on the table. The reflectors need time, attention, recognition, and consistency. They also need to feel precious and valuable. They need help to understand the quality of their sensitivity. And they need help with the disappointment so that they can have the faith and the courage to walk away from the energy when it's misaligned. Okay, you know that I've got a deep love affair here with Eleanor Roosevelt lately. I did not wear my Eleanor Roosevelt t-shirt. I almost did, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to wear that today. But there's a wealth of brilliant quotations by dear Eleanor. This is the one I thought I'd share with you today. Remember always that you have not the right to be an individual. You have an obligation to be one. You cannot make any useful contribution in life unless you do this, meaning be yourself. Because you are, you and the story of who you are and you fulfilling the potential of that story is the contribution you're here to give to the world. Okay, when you are who you are, you change the world. And if you want to create a world of sustainable, equitable peace, you yourself have to become sustainable and peaceful. And the greatest way to create that is to get into alignment with the true story of who you are. If you're going to make a change, if you're going to fully express the truth of who you are, that story of who you are, you need three things. You need information. Got some today, right? You need community. We're kind of in community here today too. And certainly there are lots of ways that you can gain community through our quantum alignment system webpage. If you go there, we've got all kinds of classes, programs. We also have a literal online community called Understanding Human Design community. If you go to understandinghumandesign.com, it's actually an online membership community. We do some amazing stuff in there. We have some great conversations in there. We've got all kinds of exclusive content in there for you. Go check it out. And you need accountability. You need somebody to follow up with you, because when we go through transformation, when we bring ourselves back into the true story of who we are, it's easy to slip back into the old conditioned self. So sometimes you need people to work with you, to hold you accountable with taking those bold, courageous moves forward, even when you might be quaking in your boot. All right. Well, I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being you. Be well. Have a great week, and I will see you guys later. Bye.